Hello.
We are back. It feels like it's been a minute.
It feels like it has. I think anytime we take a week off, it feels like longer because it's been 2 weeks since we were last sitting down together. So yeah, it feels like a minute. It feels like a little bit longer than that, but still it's
Yeah,
yeah.
somehow. But we're
Yeah.
back. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I am it's just I'm really conscious of time recently, and I'm recognizing that we're in the 7th month of this year, which is bizarre to think about, like, wow, we're in month 7 of 12 already,
Already.
and I think that, is just kinda an indicator. I saw some video the other day that said that the Earth was spinning faster than it did, like, years ago, so it seems like time's going quicker, and I'm
Is
like,
that literally true? They said
I
that?
don't know that I would not bet on it. I'm not That's not
Yeah.
scientifically accurate to my knowledge. I would say we're more distracted than we probably were 30 years ago, 50 years ago, so it seems like time's going quicker because we're paying less attention, I think, in a lot of ways, so it seems like it's moving more rapidly, but I do not believe that the Earth is spinning any faster. I feel like that could have some other side effects other than just time seeming like it's
Right.
moving
Yeah,
quick,
no.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have this I mean, I think just because of what I follow kind of spiritually, time is an illusion. It's not really real. It's like a construct that as humans
Right.
we kind of use to navigate and block, but in the whole spectrum of if you really look at it as a universe, time isn't really real. And so
Right.
I was just discussing with someone the reason why time feels faster as we age is
Mm,
because our soul is navigating, it's getting, it's getting closer and closer to its, evolution and its different points. And so the soul energetically, there's more experiences that we've held now. And so
yeah.
there's more that our it's almost like more that our soul is holding to navigate and to remember. Whereas when we're little, we haven't been here, that long. So we haven't had as much life experiences to be reflecting on and to be doing.
Yeah.
And so time doesn't feel the same, but that time is not really the thing. So I thought that was
Heard. Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, well, that's it's like I think time, especially the time that we use, like the 24-hour clock, or if you're military, or the 12-hour clock that we use is so connected to other social constructs and human inventions and things like that. So I think that there was a time when I felt like I was really operating in connection with my circadian rhythm, and I
Yeah.
was listening to this podcast the other day that was just talking about the value of that and how it impacts our health, and so I realized just in the last couple of days, even being more conscious of what my circadian rhythm is doing. And for those who don't know, it's our bodies are connected to the earth, to the solar system, to the universe in a very physical way. And
Mhm.
so the circadian rhythm is essentially just what happens when our body in the natural rhythm that the earth is moving in. So when we rise with the sun, we wake up, or when the sun starts to set, we start to lay down and kind of simmer our days down. But because of technology and electricity, we have lights on at nighttime, we're on our phones, we're in front of screens, and so we're disrupting that natural rhythm, which can
Yeah.
affect your sleep, it can affect your health. So I've been doing my best. It's only been a couple days. We're only, 6 days into this new month, but like I even adjusted the LED lights in my house so that they're dimmer lights, or like red tone lights instead of bright white lights or bright yellow lights, because I noticed that my body was feeling tired all the time, and I'm like, how do I combat feeling sleepy?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, well, this is a good segue to our topic, actually,
yeah,
believe it or not.
yeah.
Because, I've been studying circadian rhythm for a long time and, I keep my house pretty dim
Mhm.
in the evening naturally. And then the day I just have like natural light, just because
Yeah,
of everything you just said, just really understanding how your body physiologically responds.
right.
But if y'all travel and go to other countries that are not as technologized
That is a
as
good one.
ours.
Technologized. Put that in your dictionaries,
Put it
people.
in the
That's
dictionary,
a good one,
not
yeah.
real, but just put it in there. But
I
when
love
I
it.
went to Costa Rica, that's when I saw the real deal regarding kinda just how, daylight and night and sounds and nature all influence your sleepiness,
For
your
sure.
ability to sleep through the night, your because in Costa Rica, the sun sets by like 5:15 each
Mm,
day, 5:30, and it's like by 9, you're like, "I got to go to bed because 'cause it's been dark for 4 hours," and but it's a
right.
pleasant dark, and then the rain comes, so you've got the natural rain sound, and obviously, you know, Costa Rica is a rainforest full of nature. So, I don't wanna jump the gun, but that is what you're saying is a real deal, and it should be that we're really putting our bodies more in that rhythm than just a clock per
For
se.
sure. And then, like you said, when we think about travel, which we're going to talk more about today, when you're traveling through different time zones, if your body doesn't have a chance to get back in sync or back in rhythm with the circadian rhythm of wherever you are, like you said, if the sun is rising between 5 and 6 in the morning, but setting between 5 and 6 in the evening, and you're used to it not setting till 7 to 9 in the evening, then your body's going to go through that little disruption, which we know is jet lag. And I heard something the other day that said for every hour that you jump time when you go to different time zones, that's how many days it takes for your body to reset. So
Oh,
if you're
wow.
going ahead 5 hours or back 13 hours, it can take time. And rarely do we give ourselves that much time when we travel. Like I have a rule for every hour that I spend on the plane, that's a day that I need to be wherever I am. So in
Oh,
my efforts to try to get back in
look
sync, because
at
otherwise I feel
you.
like I'm not sleeping right, my energy's all jacked up, I feel like things are moving too fast, so that's my rule. For every hour of the flight, I need to be in that location for at least a day.
Well, that's an interesting rule. I'm gonna evaluate that. I'm gonna think
Okay,
about
yes,
that because,
me
because
too.
I'm thinking, I'm like, "But if you go to Asia or Australia and it's
You gotta
24
be there for like a
hours."
month. That's what I'm saying. You gotta be there for a while. I ain't flying 13, 21 hours to be somewhere for a week. Hell no.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Well, but to your point, and we'll talk more about it, but, I as an artist, I traveled a lot and traveled around the world, and when you're touring and you're performing, you're not afforded the opportunity to catch up on that, and so that listen, touring, I know y'all are traveling to see Beyoncé in France and all the things, but and she's so smart. She's so insanely smart. But to just kind of stay planted there for a minute, to your point, because
Mhm.
that is a grueling, grueling thing. And when you're changing time zones all over back and forth, notice, people who tour heavy, they stay in specific regions, not only just to travel, car wise or whatever, but also for your body, like to
Yeah.
be able to not, flux the body. But
Exactly. Yeah. So no, this is when we thought about the topic for this week, I thought it would be timely. It's summertime, people are going on vacations, and I also saw this post the other day on Instagram from someone that I don't even follow that just kind of ended up in my feed some kind of way, the algorithm. But she posted a meme in addition to like some pictures saying essentially don't wait for others to be able to see the world. And it was a post specifically about solo travel for Black women. So I was like, maybe we could talk about that this week. And I think what also inspired it is that I'm taking my first international solo trip this month, and
this
I'm
month.
very excited about it this month, like in
Oh, so
17
that's
days.
the date. Cause y'all,
That's the day.
before we were talking about how we leaving and we not gonna
Oh
be here.
yeah, we leaving. I'm leaving this month. Me, as in we and myself and I, we are going this month, and I'm super excited about it. And I thought it would be cool to talk about it with you because I know you are a fellow traveler and you have been
Yeah.
places and seen things. And I think that when we think about the topic of solo travel, it brings up a lot of different feelings. I posted something a little bit about it on my birthday last week, and I got, DMs and things. Be careful, girl. Watch out. And I'm like, y'all, I live in Long Beach, California. Okay. It is not the safest place on the planet. It's not the most dangerous either. But I think a lot of times when we think about solo travel, when we're thinking about it, the person who's actually doing the traveling, I'm curious how much safety or safety concerns are even a part of your experience. So have when you travel solo, are you thinking about safety? Is it at the top of your list or how does that even come into the decision making process?
Yeah, I mean, I think safety, I think living in America because of the insane constraint and issues around safety, it's almost it's like ingrained in us to
Yeah.
think about safety, and so but I study the places I'm going. I don't just say, oh, I want to go there because it's pretty, but it's like, let me kind of get a lay of what is that environment about. And therefore then I don't go in though with safety as the first thing on my brain. I
Right.
do go in though with like, okay, when I'm doing things, what's going to be comfortable. And if
Mhm.
I'm not going to pick a place therefore where solo travel is going to be hard, or where I'm going to have to be thinking, extra about safety. And that you have to understand, a lot of places there's just a lot of lies. There's just a lot of people, will say a lot of things about a lot of countries and a lot of cities that just are not true and are based on media and social media and people's fears and conditioning. And so I think it's just, for me, I do consider it for sure,
Mhm.
but by no means am I obsessed with it. I, do my research. Do your research.
Especially when you think about, I know times when I've been out of the country for any period of time and I happen to turn on the news, or I talk to locals, whether they're, staff members at hotels that I've stayed in or folks who work in restaurants that I visit, and I tell them I'm from America or I'm American, they're like, "Ooh," because
Right.
they're looking at us like, "Y'all
Exactly.
niggas are the crazy ones. Y'all walking around with guns. You guys just kill people on sight. Like, we're the dangerous place in comparison to other places."
Absolutely.
So, coming from here, like you said, to your point, and just as we know as Americans that, yes, it's a dangerous place. However, we may not walk down the street in fear necessarily. So, I think when we travel to other countries, of course, always be aware of your surroundings. That's just kind of like a
Absolutely.
given no matter where you are. Like my dad tells us, keep your head on a swivel. Basically, don't walk around like Boo Boo the Fool looking lost. You know what I mean? Like that's just goofy. You shouldn't do that anywhere, let alone
Right.
in Manhattan or Mexico. It doesn't really matter. So
Right.
I think about when you share a plan, whether it's with friends or family members or followers, or community members that you plan to travel solo, what are some of the responses that you've gotten from people when
Mm.
you share those plans with them?
Well, I don't share a lot before. I'm gonna be honest, I don't.
Heard.
And
I've learned
even
that.
when yes, when because especially things, and I think this is in general, anything that I am doing that I'm already feeling really committed to and like my soul, whatever that is, I just don't. And it's not that I'm trying to be private or secretive. It's actually, I know Kenya really well, and I know that I love my people. And if they say something to me that is kind of like outside of what I want to do, now I'm going to consider them the people pleaser gets in me. Like I got all those kind of issues that I'm
Yeah.
working through slowly but surely. But yeah, I don't really share. I share, to my close people who I know who like, cause
Mhm.
I did a really big solo trip, for my birthday. And I kind of gave some generalities that I was going to be going away, but I didn't necessarily say solo. If somebody asked me, if a friend like, "Oh, are you going with your partner or are you going by yourself?" And I'm like, "No, this is a solo." And I just kind of left it there. So yeah, I don't really share. And then with social media, now this is a real thing. I do think that it's not a good idea
Mhm.
to be, tagging your little location,
Right.
where you are, for a myriad of obvious and maybe some not so obvious. So,
Right.
um, I do think, just kind of waiting, and you can always give clues and indications and, kind of, if you want to, just because you're just really enjoying the moment, you want to share.
Right.
But I don't share a whole lot because yeah, I don't.
Well, and I
And
think that's like a safety tip, I would say, because like people who like to vlog or you're really, like you said, you're really active on social when you're traveling and you want to capture these moments and these memories. It's like you can capture all your content while you're traveling and you can post all of it when you get home.
ta-da.
So it's so just for your protection, like you said, not necessarily sharing exactly where you are, where you're going to be, where you're staying, because you never know, who's out there
Absolutely.
watching you. And that's just anytime. I think
Right.
also to your point, sharing any big plans, any big experiences that you've planned, that you've put time, energy, and effort into, with other people, you always kind of run the risk of like hearing what they think about it, which is something that you when you share when it comes to travel, I think that sometimes people think solo travel is something that you do when you're like going through something or when you need
Um,
something or you're
mhm,
seeking something. And it's like sometimes, yes, but I think
mhm.
also what I look forward to most about this upcoming trip is even when it comes to the packing process, like I'm going with just me in mind. I'm not
Yes,
overpacking. I'm not thinking about I should bring this just in case they want to do this or just in case they
yes,
want to do that. It's more like I could probably just bring some clean drawers, flip flops, and a bathing suit and
girl,
be fine. You know what I'm
girl,
saying? Like
girl, listen to yourself. Cause seriously.
keep it
Yeah.
simple. So, like, what are some of the things you notice, some of the differences in how you approach your solo trips versus trips you've taken with groups or partners or anything like that?
Yeah. Everything that you just said, that freedom to really, and I think I think it was my last trip that I realized even more, like, you can do whatever you want. So how you so you don't need to over plan this the way you do when you travel with your boys, or the way you have to think about when you travel with, your partner, or you don't
Mhm.
have to do any of that. You can figure it out, once you kind of have a base.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, I mean, this last big trip, because I was gone 10 days, that was the longest that I've been gone solo,
Mhm.
10 days. And I was kind of hopping cities a bit. I went to Miami first. And just to let y'all know, like, so this was my 50th birthday gift to myself. So I was very,
Yeah.
very specific about this, because one of the things, and I don't know if your trip is a gift for your birthday to yourself,
It is
but
definitely. Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful gift. So consider that, y'all out there, gifting yourself with your solo travel. But I didn't I dare I say this out loud, but I did a very special photo shoot during my
Right. You did. That's right.
during my soiree.
Yeah.
So there was a lot that I was doing to put myself kind of in these vulnerable spaces, because I really wanted to feel Kenya in this,
Mhm.
So yeah, so I don't know. I just, that 10-day really forced me to think about me, because it was a
Right.
long amount of time, and it was like, okay, so who you, what? And I was like,
It's
well,
like you don't you whatever you want. That's the it's like, what do I wanna do today? So initially, I just was just really excited and just booked a one-way ticket and was like, "I'm just gonna
oh,
go, and I'll figure it out later."
you
And
booked
then
a one
America was
way.
like, "You gotta tell us when you coming back, because
Oh,
other countries,
wow.
they don't just be letting you show up and just stay as long as you want. You have to tell them when you're leaving. Otherwise, there's other paperwork involved." So I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I gotta book a return flight." And
Yeah, yeah.
initially, I was giving myself about 3 weeks of travel, and I was looking at all these different places I could go, and I could stay here as my base, and I could take a little plane there, and I was like, "You know what? Let me scale back, 1, because it's my first time, so I wanna give myself time to kinda just ease into that. 2, an opportunity to, produce a film showed up for me, so it kinda drew back my schedule a little bit as well, and I
Mm.
also felt I was getting into that rhythm of people pleasing because there were other friends who were like, "We're gonna be in that country too. Maybe we could meet up." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I can meet up with you." And I was like, "Wait, hold on now, hold on. This is supposed to be about me." So
Okay,
I
can we put
canceled
a
all
pin in
that.
that? That what you just said, put a pin in this about meeting up with people when you travel.
Let's come back to that. So that process in and of itself was starting to bring up that feeling of like, oh, okay, well, what if they want to do this and they might want to do that? And I'm like, wait a minute, this was about me.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you about that. Like when you traveled solo, what has your experience been like when it comes to like meeting up with people along the way versus just taking the whole thing by yourself?
Yeah. So, very good question, and that's why I wanna put a pin. So, I've done different types of solo travel. Sometimes I do a solo travel, and most of this, is domestically when I do a solo travel. That's
Okay.
mostly what I've done. The other travel I've done solo to meet somebody specifically once I got
Mhm.
there, so I
Mhm.
soloed until I got there
Yeah.
internationally. But, But yeah, so in my head, this one that I did, the 10-day one, it's like, okay, I'm not telling nobody nothing about nothing. I'm not trying to find nobody. And I had, I had talked to someone, they're like, oh, my cousin, I'm gonna give him your number, make sure you call them. And I told them, I'm not going to during this trip,
I'm not going
but
to call them.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna call them. But if I decide to return back,
Yeah.
let me keep their number. So it was kind of my way of kind of gently putting my people please without really people pleasing. So that was one way.
That's good.
But domestically, sometimes what I do is deliberately plan to travel by myself. I've done a trip once. This was like a big one. I was going through a lot personally. So this was
Mm.
like going
Yeah.
through trip. So this was some years ago. But I deliberately went to different cities kind of on the East Coast. And
Okay.
yes, I reached out to specific people that I knew I wanted to see,
Mhm.
and made dates with them. And that was
Okay.
really fun because I was intentional. I want to see this person. There was a concert that I wanted to see. I'm gonna go get tickets for myself for that show,
Yeah.
and ironically, my cousin showed up there and he was like, let's go hang. I'm like, nope, I just came to the show, going back to the hotel,
So,
you
that's
know.
it. I think that's different. I think when you're going places where people live and you're like, I want to plan to see this person who lives in this place that I don't, I might not otherwise see them for some period of time. I think even that is like a different
Yeah.
accommodation versus I'm going to go to a whole nother country.
Yes.
People that I know, I see y'all once a week here in California. I ain't trying to go through all kind of arrangements to see your ass in Mexico or Australia.
Mhm.
Like I could see you on Thursday.
I can
So
see you
I
on Thursday.
realized that it was, and I get like wanting to have great experiences with friends, but I think like when it comes to planning travel with like your core group of friends that you're with all the time in other places and everybody's going to be kind of spread out. It's like if I see you, I see you. If I'm going to be in the northern part of a country and you're going to be in the southwestern part of a country, we might not see each other on this trip. It just
Exactly.
might not happen.
It might
And
not happen.
so it might not happen. And I think it also feels different to take a solo trip, an international solo trip, where I'm not, for all intents and purposes, meeting anybody on the other side. Now, as far as y'all know, in the YouTube world, I'm meeting my really big, strong partner who carries machetes on the other side. But
Ah! Oh, Lord. No,
but yeah,
no.
I think it's different when you, like you mentioned, one of the benefits for me, even though it hasn't happened yet, but in my mind it's happening because I'm manifesting exactly the experience that I want. One of the benefits for me, I know from this trip is just going to be in a place where for that 5 or 7 days that I'm there, I don't have to consider the needs of anyone but
Oh my
me.
girl, this is the point. This is why those of y'all watching and listening, you must, especially as Black women,
Yeah.
especially because of how we function in our constant overtaking care of everybody.
Yeah.
That for me is the most critical belly of the solo travel is that you are literally only tending to your needs. And I think that's so foreign that people don't even know what that really looks like without having assigned task, right? Like
Yeah.
work or, these things that we kind of do for ourselves at home. But
Mhm.
when you're traveling, you are literally, when you're solo, you're literally given the opportunity to fully accommodate you. And that for me is the glory. That's the glory.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether you take a solo trip to Arizona or to Africa, wherever you go, I think it's giving yourself, like you said, giving yourself permission because we as Black women, whether it's in our DNA or we've been cultured this way to be caretakers, to be leaders, to be nurturers, to be providers, to be space holders, to be able to
Wow.
take all of that and just apply it to us. Like the place that I'm staying, after realizing that I was not Carmen Sandiego and I was not going to try to see an entire country in 7 or 10 days. I just picked one place and I will be staying there. That is my base camp,
Good.
and maybe kind of
Good.
visiting some short places I can drive to. But the
Yeah.
place that I chose to stay in it's a remote resort. So it's very much a resort, very much a hotel, but it's
Yeah.
designed so that each person has their own private bungalow. There's no adjoining rooms.
Nice,
It's on the
nice.
beach. There's
Oh,
a spa
yes,
and a
girl.
restaurant and horseback riding and all the things. So,
Yes,
what are some of the those are some of the things that I knew that I needed because part like you said, part of taking this journey, part of going on this trip is to take all the things that I normally put into others and put it into me and also for me to be receiving care and nurturing and tenderness and maybe not too
yeah.
much tenderness, but you know what I'm saying, just a little bit.
Or
what are
not. I mean, you're coupled, but I mean, being
Hey, I mean, you could
open.
tenderly rub my feet or my ankles, that's fine after a long horseback ride.
Yes. I mean, I just think remaining open. I know for me, so, not to let the cat completely out of the bag, but I have a new project that I'm releasing in September, and it is a book project. And so when I did another part of this travel was for me to have some alone time to focus on some writing for what I was doing. And it's funny when so I had kind of plans, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And then when I got in the space and I really felt the energy, I was in Cartagena, Colombia, and I was like, oh, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just gonna sit in this room, I'm gonna go to the beach and go on the water. But the
Yeah.
writing, I said, no, but I felt very motivated to write because I just had so much clarity. And it's funny, I've been
Mm,
working with a book coach so that I'll be accountable and finish this project. So it
good.
is coming. But when I met up with her after she read the drafts, because I had changed concepts and everything, and she was like, "This is like a completely different, like you, like this is nothing that we heard before." And I'm like, "Yeah." She said, "This is a completely new concept for the book," and it did. It completely changed, and
Good.
it's a guidebook, so it's
Okay.
me really, but that I too, I read some things back and I'm like, "Oh, what?" And I'm like, "The only reason you could feel that is because you were taking care of you."
That's
And
right.
so as you're writing a guidebook, because this guidebook is to help other women learn how to
Mm,
feel affirmed in themselves,
nice.
I realized I don't think I knew this in lifetime that this was happening, but I
Mhm.
realized, "Oh, wow, I have to I divinely was in taking care of me so that I could offer that
That's
to
right.
other women."
It's
Um,
essential. I think about that too. Like, I was asking myself, what do I want to do on this trip? How do I want to feel on this trip? And, when I come back, what am I taking away from it? So those are the kinds of things that I
Absolutely.
thought about when I was like finding a location that I wanted to stay, when I was pulling back from trying to meet up with a bunch of other people and do too many things. And then also thinking about what I want to bring. Do I want to bring my iPad or should I just bring my notebook? Like, really meaning like,
Right.
how can I structure this? Because I do plan on writing while I'm there because I
Yeah.
I know when I wrote my first self-published book years ago, I did that in isolation.
Mhm.
I was in a isolated space for like 10 days,
Oh,
just me,
wow.
and I had, worked on my own, not with a coach, but I had worked on my own to kind of develop what that process looked like for me. And I don't know if I would have finished it had I not had those 10 days. And 10 days is pretty quick to write a whole book.
Yeah.
However, it was because there was no interruption.
You had no
There was no
interruption.
disruption. It was
That's
just me.
I mean, people do whole albums in 5 days when they're in
Exactly.
studios, so we have a question here, I'm
We
gonna
have a
put it up.
question,
Yeah, from
Talisa.
Talisa. Can you share the safety measures you've put in place as you travel alone? I can share mine, but Keyshawn, since this is kinda your first big.
Yeah, well, primarily, I would say safety measures is I've shared my itinerary with my partner. She knows exactly where I'm going to be staying. I made all of my arrangements myself, directly contacting the place the resort that I'm staying, working with their booking agent. I arranged all of my transportation through them as well. I'm traveling with a known airline that I've already traveled with. One of the safety flags that was coming up for me when I was thinking about going to other places was transportation within the country
Yes. Yeah.
with unfamiliar airlines, unfamiliar ground transportation. I was like, I don't know about what is this airline? I don't know them. Or, you know, I'm not taking taxi cabs. I'm going to take the airport shuttle where there will be other people probably on the shuttle with me, and I
Yeah.
figure those things. And so I also know the place that I'm staying, while it is remote, it's also secure. There's, there's a really attentive staff there. So I think when we think about safety measures, for me, choosing a base camp was really important.
Yeah.
So sometimes when people think about, like, I want to visit a country and I want to backpack through a country, where's your base camp? Like, if something goes wrong, where can your people, if need be, find you? So for
Right.
me, having a base camp was essential. And the one that I chose is populated enough to where it's big, but it's not so big. And so those are some of the kinds of things that I've already started to think about before I even leave. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm going to travel. Well, I don't know how many weapons I can bring with me, but I'll travel with, some appropriate weaponry if
She
necessary. Should it
said her weapons, and I
should it
got
come
my
to
weapons,
that?
y'all.
But
Oh,
but um but yeah, like the place that I'm staying, it's not a traditional hotel. So, like, you see on TikTok, they're like, use this thing to, like, lock your hotel room door. It ain't that kind of place.
yeah.
It's so I think that choosing a smaller resort to stay in was also what I would now, thinking about it, a safety measure, because
Yeah.
there are only about 20 villas there, or 20 bungalows. It's very, very small.
Yeah.
So that was also something I took into consideration. But that's all I can think of right now. But how about you, Kenya?
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is everything that you just said, absolutely, and I think it's really important to and this is why solo travel is so it's bigger than just going to a place and seeing it.
Right.
It's about you getting still with yourself and being honest with what makes you feel secure.
Right.
And if you are feeling paranoid or feeling you need to now start asking the whys of that. What is that
Mhm.
about?
Right.
Because again, we live in a country that has conditioned us. We have a lot of violence in this country.
Yeah.
Most other countries do not experience violence and mass shootings. And being Black in this country versus
Right.
being Black in other spaces is a very different experience because there's a historical shift. So I think if you are traveling alone internationally, there's a very different lens that you have to begin to process. And it's
Right.
very important if you're traveling internationally that you're really taking a moment with self to understand why you're doing this trip.
Mhm.
And then wherever you are going, to do your homework. So
Right.
to your point, Keyshawn, knowing, you know, I knew for the Big 10 day, I really didn't want to have to be riding around and I wasn't going there to go see all the sites
No.
of the city. I was going there to
Right.
rest.
Right.
So I made sure I got, you know, a major hotel that's international, that has a
Mhm.
resort that other people may think, oh, it's not quaint enough. I didn't need that for that trip. I
Right.
wanted to be able to get there. And the other thing is if you're going into another country, you have to think of the language. This is really important too. And so when you're going to countries where English, you know, we assume as English speakers that everybody everywhere, there'll be some kind of English for you. No, not
Not always.
necessarily.
Nope.
It depends on where you're going. And yes, the bigger, more popular places, yes, you'll probably have, you know, people who are bilingual and will speak English.
Mhm.
But there is a good chance that if you are really trying to go certain spaces, especially in, you know, Latina countries and so forth, they don't speak English. It's not, you don't see a little sub captions of this
Right.
is literally the language. So you got to think about it because that's a safety thing too, is how do you navigate, you know, your communication and stuff.
Right.
So I think, you know, everything you said, I'm just very particular about really understanding where I'm going and the type
Mhm.
of experience I'm wanting to have. And I release the American fear. It
Yes. That's
really,
so key.
it's key. You have
Yeah.
to, because you're not going to
It
go anywhere. You're not
No,
going to
you
go
won't.
anywhere if you get too situated on safety, you know? And so when I fly
Right.
in the States by myself, you know, obviously because it's the States,
Right.
but I think like, oh, if I'm going to New York, I got to really think about where am I going to be staying? Do I really want
Exactly.
to do that solo versus if I'm going to Colorado, which I'll never be solo in Colorado because that's where I'm from. But you know, so it's to me, just to add on to what you're saying is the more psychological piece is, you know, really investigate you. And if you find that you're very fearful and very over concerned about safety, understand there's a bigger situation going on there because And
Right.
that's not bad. I mean, just it's just information that you wanna kind of begin to resolve because what you don't wanna do is to go on this trip and be paranoid the whole time that people
Yeah,
are
like
looking at you or that, something might happen to you because then you
right,
can't be in the moment. So, go start off small. A solo
right.
trip, solo travel could mean going to, 2 hours away from where you
For the
live.
w exactly. It especially if you've never done it. If
Absolutely.
you've never done it, like, of course, when I was first talking to my son about taking a solo trip, I told him my plan. I was like, I'm gonna be gone for like 3 months and I'm gonna travel." And he was like, "Girl, what okay, why don't you try going to Vegas out for the weekend or something, something small." And I'm like, "Sir, I am a grown woman," but he had a point because
Yes.
you know
Yes.
yourself, you
Yes.
know the things that you're gonna need to feel safe, to feel comfortable. And for me, like there's this concept of there's vacationers and there's travelers.
Mm.
Vacationers, they're looking
Mhm.
for the ease, they're looking for just find me a cool hotel with 25 restaurants, 3 swimming
Mhm.
pools, I ain't got to go nowhere. That's just vacation.
Vacation. Yep.
Travelers, they're like immerse me in a cultural experience that's unique to this location that I cannot recreate at home. I'm
Yes.
a traveler. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I had to find a way to be able to have that unique experience without compromising my safety, without compromising my wallet either, and also recognizing that I needed to start small. So
Yeah.
for me, going to a country that I've been to before, a part of the country that I've never seen, a place that speaks a language that I'm not fluent in, but I can at least converse enough to find bathroom, toilet, bank, safe place, things like that. Those are I know how to order food in
Right.
this language and things like that. I think that those are also elements that create that ease, that create that flow. And I know sometimes the media often creates a perception that certain destinations in the world are less welcoming for Black travelers. And I also chose a country that I haven't seen that particular media representation. And
Right.
so I think about other parts of the world that I've been interested to see that I can honestly say they're not high on my list because I don't necessarily know that they're really welcoming of Black travelers. So, based on your experiences, have you ever visited a place solo that you didn't feel welcome as a Black person versus just as an American?
I can't say that I have. I mean, but I also have a bit of a different lens. I would say I have felt, and I wasn't solo in this, but when I've gone to more of southern states here in
Right here in America.
certain
Yeah.
cities here in the States is where I've probably felt that the most. But when
Yep.
I've gone abroad, I mean, my first I've like I said, my first full solo where it was just me literally was just this past 50th birthday. The other times where I've gone solo internationally, and that's mostly been to Europe,
Mm,
um, you know, I I have like traveled there by myself, but then I will meet an artist and then,
right.
we're like going to go perform. But then
Yeah.
we go off into our own spaces. And so I might have a couple more days by myself and
Yeah.
then we meet up again for a show. And so this is another thing to kind of think about is, solo travel to me doesn't just mean always being alone the whole time. It really
Mm,
kind of to my point earlier, it can be a little bit of a combo. The idea is though the solo is that you are navigating, you're not trucking along someone with you each, trip. You are
right.
soloing it and then you're meeting up. I mean, I just went to Vegas, yes, Lord, to see Usher.
Oh,
And it was amazing. Yes, it was
okay.
just as outstanding as everybody's talking about. Okay.
Good.
And to a certain degree, that's kind of a type of solo, meaning that I traveled there by myself.
Mhm.
And yes, I met my girlfriend there, but we had our own rooms. We
Yeah.
grown, good shoot.
What
We 50 years old. We have our own rooms,
Yeah.
and we met. We got our own flights, and it's like I'll see you there. We'll plan for dinner. I'll text you the next day. We'll maybe eat some brunch, but
Yep.
we're not children where we have to. So to me, that's a type of solo travel in the sense
Yeah.
that I navigated everything. I set up everything. We just knew
Mhm.
that we wanted to see Usher together. So
Exactly. Yeah, and
so do
I think I
that.
like that you brought
Yeah.
that up too because sometimes, like you said, we're grown. Like I have friend and what one thing I appreciate about my friendships is that I have friends that, we travel differently. I have friends
Girl.
who
Yes.
will stay at a hostel. I will not be staying at a hostel. I have friends who are like, we'll just figure it out when we get there. And I'm like, I'm also not that friend. I need to know where the hell I'm sleeping
Yes.
before I get off the plane.
Yes.
And so, but
Yes.
again, that's me, and I think that something when we think about solo travel that I think is kind of a thread here is operating in a way that is in service to yourself. If
Yes.
that means meeting up with the homegirls for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or maybe just meeting up for dinner, or if that means you go get a massage while they go to the casino, go get your massage, and I
Yes.
think there's ways that we can have, group experiences where we're still operating in service to ourselves. And I also think that there's a benefit of having those solo experiences in travel where you are by yourself, not necessarily in isolation, unless that's what you feel led to do. Because I have a friend who planned a trip for herself and she's going like away where
Mm.
ain't nobody there but her. That's not this journey for me this time. There will be other
Right.
people there. And for
Right.
me, I naturally meet people, I connect with people, I like studying people. I'm a people watcher. So I know I'm gonna come back with some friends. I already know that. That's just gonna happen. You know what I mean? So I look forward to that piece of it too, because you can probably relate to this when you traveled with your children or with partners, you tend to kind of stay in your little pod. You know,
Exactly.
you don't connect with other
You don't
people.
get to necessarily do that, and that's the other part of it that's so cool. I know when I went to Colombia, I one of the days I really wanted to see this one area that, and right now for whatever reason I can't think. It starts with a P. But anyway, this one area that had a lot of traditional African culture, and I was like, okay, well, am I just gonna go there by myself? And so what I was like, no, I'm gonna find a tour company or whatever. So there was this
Mhm.
black owned tour company that was like, yeah, we'll pick you up. And, there's some other people that'll be on the tour. So that was what was so cool about that was, yes, I went by myself, but there was like a group of like 12 black women who
Oh,
had all
yeah.
come down there as a group, but I was now with them plus the 12. So I made like 12 new friends, while we were,
Right.
and it was really wonderful because it was a day, like a day tour. So we had lunch, we had to travel
Mhm.
to get there. Then we toured all the area and then they took us and got snack and shopping and then they drop you back. And
Makes
so it
sense.
was like almost probably 6 hours together. But
Nice.
what's so beautiful about that is that I met these other black women and we really had community in the moment. Like, they
Right.
didn't know me, I didn't know them. So we could really kind of talk about, oh, what do you do? And what's this? And how are you? And blah, blah. Why'd you do this by yourself? Oh, girl, you by yourself? That question, of course, is
Yeah.
like, yeah, I turned 50. And it gave me that just enough social. And then I could say bye,
And you
and
can
then
say bye. Yes. Yes. That's so valuable though. And
yes,
especially, and I think that's also maybe another safety tip or another travel tip is like, if you do plan on traveling solo, and there's a specific location that you want to visit, is to do the research. If you can find a black owned travel company or a travel company that caters to women or a travel company that caters to solo travelers,
yes,
you'll be able to find tour guides and other experiences that they know that you're doing this by yourself, so you're going to be in positions where you get to connect with other people so that you
yes.
still get to have a shared experience. For me, I'm like, who's going to take the pictures? Okay, because I know who's going to be my
And they
photographer
were
for this
taking
trip.
pictures, they were doing video for me. It was just
Yeah.
so fun that, and that's not something I had planned.
Right.
I hadn't really planned. It was kind of in the moment. Now, to
Right.
your point, and I'll ask you if you did this, so I have a girlfriend who I I think she's gone to, I don't know, over 100 countries. I don't know. She has gone
Wow.
to like every continent, including Antarctica. She is an avid traveler. She's a black woman, and
Mhm.
she's off in the Netherlands for the North Sea Jazz Fest. There's a crew of us that usually go.
Wow.
I'm gonna go back next year, but she knows because she's gone everywhere. She is my like dictionary, thesaurus, Google. I contact her. So when I was going to Colombia, I said, okay, girl, I'm going. She's like, okay, these are the places that you
Where
should
I need to
check out.
go.
If you want this kind of price, you should always call this. And so having her, I told her she needs to start a business because she really because she is, as a black woman, she's really
Mhm.
experienced this. So I think if you also can connect with other Black women, not necessarily that you're traveling with them, but that on
Right.
YouTube, I mean, Stephanie Perry is a big YouTuber, and this is all she spends her time to help Black women live their lives more vibrantly, including
Mm.
taking sabbaticals, traveling abroad, traveling solo, all of these types of things. And so I think
Mhm.
it's important if you can like watch, some of these YouTube resources or find a resource. So that'll also help with the safety, but it also help you kind of plan and also just hear from them. Cause Stephanie Perry, her community, they are avid travelers as Black
Yeah.
women. And they are very committed to helping Black women do this and experience
Absolutely.
this. So they have a
Yeah,
lot
no,
of
I think
resources.
that's a really good point, and, like, there's folks that I travel on I mean, that I travel with, not yet, maybe I'm manifesting that. There's folks that I follow on, like, social that are, like, Black traveler groups or Black expat groups, those are for folks who are ready to get out of America altogether,
Yeah.
but I think that
Mhm.
like you mentioned, being able to find community in other ways that are kinda outside of your typical friend group or outside of your circle is valuable because ultimately, yes, you wanna feel safe anywhere that you are, especially if you're going to another country or you're going to a location that you've never been before. And maybe you are kind of just taking a stab in the dark and booking an Airbnb. I chose not to go with an Airbnb. For me, that was a safety decision
Right.
because I was like, I don't know a lot about this particular location. It is outside of a primary, really big city or really big state in this country. And so instead of just kind of like randomly booking an Airbnb that has really cute pictures and ended up somewhere that got chicken coops inside, I didn't want to do that. So I did a lot of research on where I was going to
Yeah.
stay and also chose a place that was geographically somewhat familiar, if that makes
Yes.
sense. So it's like,
Yes.
oh, okay, so this is like, okay, this is in this part of the country. So I might experience this kind of weather.
Yes.
Checking the
Yes.
weather,
Oh,
looking at those things
okay.
are important too, because
Weather.
weather.
There's a lot, and because the climate is changing, it ain't just changing in the States, y'all. I mean, it's
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 changing on
changing
the globe.
it's changing
Yeah,
on the globe. It's
yeah,
global warming, global climate. So this is really important because in the US, we're a little bit spoiled in the sense that we still relatively experience seasons.
like season
But
mhm.
depending on where you're going, they don't really experience seasons. And, especially those people who I know are running to Costa Rica, they're all about Costa Rica. Remember, Costa Rica is a rainforest. Literally half of the year, it rains. And
Yeah,
it's not like certain areas of Mexico where it's their rainy season where it kind of just rains in the afternoon, evening, a little bit
mhm,
lighter than the days. No, Costa Rica at a point, it's like, yeah, it's maybe a little bit of sun in the morning, but then like from 11 a.m. on, it's rain. And we're talking rain, like
right. They're
power
not
out
talking about
rain.
a misty rain, they're talking about
No,
rain, rain, purple rain,
it's
rain,
purple
it's
rain,
rain.
purple rain. So thinking about so this is important to your point is thinking when you're planning out your trip, and there's a lot of things, and we're not going to be able to go through all the things, but another
Of
important thing
course.
is when you're figuring out the area you want to go to. If you know you're trying to experience sunshine and warm and all and little rain, then you need to make sure you're checking what's the climate at that time of year. Don't assume just because we're in summer here that those places you're going to experience a similar summer, or just because
Right,
it's winter here and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go there because it's warm at that time. You really need to pay attention to that because if you're like
absolutely.
me, weather will really either make this trip, poopy or great. It's weather.
Yeah.
I'm very weather conscious. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Same thing. I would say like you mentioned, if where you are in the States geographically is, on the Northeast and you're like, oh, this is our hot season, and you decide to go below the equator, it's a whole nother hemisphere. So really being intentional about doing the research on where you want to go and also why you want to go there.
yeah,
So for
yeah.
me, I chose a small city outside of a larger state because going just to the hub of this particular state just felt like it's basically just like LA Junior. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to just go to LA and speak
Yeah,
another language. Like that's not
yeah.
what I wanted. And so I'm curious for you, and I know we have to wrap shortly. What would you say is something that you discovered about yourself from your solo travel
Oh,
experiences?
so many
So
things.
many things.
I think probably mainly just how much I needed the rest. I have really underestimated my rest situation. I really have thought, yeah, I tried it. I have a life. I'm creating ease. And I really, when I was away that amount of time and I literally could wake up and just go right back to bed and then get up at noon and stay up for an hour and go back to bed. And, I like, it was like, wow. And really need it.
Yeah.
I just learned that I'm overworking.
Mm,
I'm doing too much. I'm doing too much. And so since I have gotten back, a variety of things have happened, what felt suddenly, but I'm really starting to understand spiritually is really telling me you have to create a life more of ease. And so you need to
mm,
continue these solo travel where you're very, intentional and really, and then the thing, a huge one is needs, is my understanding, hearing, listening to, accommodating my
yeah.
needs. That
Yeah.
I really underestimated the power of how much when I travel with someone, I
Mhm.
am trying to accommodate them and
Yes.
accommodate and not accommodate like I'm gonna go get your food. I mean
No,
like
like
emotionally, like
yeah,
constantly
yeah.
considering them. So
My mom says as long as mama knows where you're going, we good. I
let
will
your
drop a
mama
pin.
let
Certain
your
people will have
yes.
pin drop privileges. I will drop
Let
a
your
pin.
mama know. Now, I will say this, I did on my travel, yes, I talked to my partner every single day. We
Yeah.
made sure we had our WhatsApp, on
Mhm.
he knew, I mean, I've talked to him a couple times.
Yeah.
And then my sister and my niece, I'm very tight with them. And so, I kept them in the loop pretty much daily. I don't think there was a day that I didn't just send a
Like
little bit of a
check in or
smoke signal.
something. Yeah, I
Mhm.
was thinking about that too
Yeah.
because again, when I this trip has gone through many iterations. Okay, initially I was like, I'm gonna go places that are remote. They're not gonna have any Wi-Fi, and that was because, kind of to your point, I know I'm going into this trip knowing that I'm doing too damn much right now. I
Yes.
know that my plate is full. I know that I'm too available and too active and too busy. I chose the location that I chose intentionally because I was like, I mean, yes, they have Wi-Fi because I mean, I won't say everywhere, but they do have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
However, when I booked the specific place that I'm staying, I asked, I was like, so what's your Wi-Fi like? He was like, it's available. We have Wi-Fi available. And I was like, that's cool. That's enough. It's available.
Yes.
Meaning, if needed, okay, I can reach the people I need to reach. However, it's not so available. I'm not looking for, does it have the fastest Wi-Fi? Does it, it's like, no, I'm not
Right.
going there for that, you know?
Right.
And so when I think about one of the things that I hope to get in touch with myself is to reconnect with nature. That's another reason why I chose the location because I said I could go stay at a large hotel chain that they have here in the States and experience something similar, except just in another country. But I wanted to be able to go to a place where I could connect with nature. And the place that I
Yeah.
chose, it's an ecological resort. So everything is
Mhm.
very natural. Everything is very outside,
We're like,
so to
"Where's she
speak.
going? Where's she?"
I
Don't
know,
tell
I
us.
can't
Don't
tell
tell us.
y'all on the
Don't
internet
tell us.
because somebody might try to get me. No,
Don't
just kidding.
yep, don't tell us. But I cannot wait till you come back to tell us.
I will. Yeah, I will share the location with y'all, people who know me in real life,
Yeah.
offline because it took some research to find something that was one in my budget, two available, and three was just enough. And so
Yeah.
I will need bug spray. I do need that or those little
Oh,
bracelets. Okay.
yes, and don't sleep on that.
I won't because I will bugs like apparently I have very edible blood. So
Yes. That's there's a lot. I mean, we are just kinda touching,
we are.
the surface on this. I will say I did a podcast after my trip to talk about, it that on my podcast, which is on all the platforms. It's called Finding Your Voice After 40, and it's
Yeah.
episode 12. I just looked it up. So I talk a little bit more detail about, my kind of experience with travel and some, takeaways that I had and some cons, because there are cons. I don't want people, we trying to muscle up and pump up, Keisean. So we're not going to talk a bunch, but
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, sometimes, we just, yeah, we'll talk about the cons when I get back. No,
yes,
but that's real. Yeah, but that's real. And I'm glad you mentioned the podcast because that is one thing that I do intend to do because I told myself, I want to capture these experiences. So I was trying to decide what pieces of tech I was going to bring with me. And I was like, what if I just brought my phone as per usual? And anything that I want to write, I'm just going to use my voice notes. I'm just going to talk. I'm going to talk it out and then I'll go back and dictate later because wanting to reduce distractions as much as I
yeah,
possibly can is really important too. And like
yeah,
you said, this I hope encourages people to at least consider booking yourself a solo trip, whether it's domestic, like you said, Kenya, whether it's 2 hours away, whether it's, somewhere away enough so that you can feel like you've distanced yourself from your day to day life alone, just so that you can feel what that feels like to
yes.
wake up when you're ready to wake up, to have your meals when you're ready to have your meals, to choose your meals by yourself, to
Oh my
go to where
God.
you want to go and not go to where you don't want to go. Like to just give yourself permission to have that, I think is so important, especially for us.
And it's extremely palpable and powerful when you experience it. I mean, we're saying it, and I know those of you listening are saying, "Yeah, yeah," but I'm telling you, when you do it on a daily, like day to day, not just because it's Saturday, but literally you have a full week of that, or 10 days, or 14 days, or whatever. I mean, it's just really, really critical, and it informs you so much more of how to live your life. And to this point, I know as we wrap up, I'm actually doing a free masterclass next Tuesday called Travel for Wellness because, we can't just keep thinking of our wellness by just the food we eat, which is another part of travel too. You got to
Mm.
remember food and things because you can get travel diarrhea and all the other stuff
Yes.
that's there.
Right.
But
Those are on the cons list. We'll
yes,
talk
that's on the
about
convo. We'll talk about that next time. But when she comes back. But you want to think about wellness in terms of your mental health as
Mhm.
well and your spiritual health. And travel has such, to your point about the nature situation. In America and our major cities, and obviously there's major cities across the world,
Of course.
but nature, the access that you have to nature in our society, at least in this American culture,
Yeah,
it's there. We totally underutilize it
of
because I
course.
think we actually have a lot of landscape in
I think
America
so
to really
too. Yeah,
take in the land and so forth. But we just are so industrialized and technologized. Is that my new word?
there it
That,
is.
that we don't do it. But I'll put that up in just a moment if you want to
Yeah.
come. It's free. And I'm talking about it because, one of the ways Keishan and I met on Clubhouse and talking, the reason why I do travel a lot and why I believe in travel so much is because I do retreats. I host retreats.
Mhm.
And the whole point of the retreats that I try to do is to get away so that you can experience yourself
Yeah.
outside of this every day and in nature. And then, the
Right.
retreats are group retreats. So it's a way for you to also build community. But
Right.
yeah, I'm excited for you. This is
Thank
gonna be
you.
really fun. What are
Thank
you
you.
This will be my last question for you. What are you most looking forward to with this trip?
What I'm most forward to with this trip is being free with my time. Just being free with my time. No calendar, no schedule, no appointments, just being able to be free with my time to wake up when the sun comes up, which I do anyway. And then also like you mentioned, to be able to be outside, to connect with nature. I've noticed that I feel disconnected
Mm,
to the earth, and I
mhm,
noticed how that's affecting my mental health, my physical health, and so this
mhm.
for me is an opportunity to just immerse myself back into the earth in a way that I know I really need to do. So that's what I'm most looking
I
forward
love
to.
that. I love that. And yes, wherever it sounds like you're going somewhere amazing, bungalows and nature and all the things and water and that connecting to nature and again, here in the States are it's just, I don't know. The places I've gone, I've just been able to experience actually tasting the food because it's coming from the land.
Yes. Yeah,
and so it's very powerful. So
yeah,
I'm going to put this up real quick. If anybody
yeah.
is interested in continuing and hearing, there's 5 top health benefits that I'm going to talk about that I think, to add on to everything that, Keyshawn is talking about or has talked about in terms of what she's looking forward to. But there's a lot of really cool wellness things that I think a lot of people don't really think about. But one of
Mhm.
the other things I'll be talking about in this masterclass is how do you decide if I should be doing like a retreat, or should I just be
Okay.
doing a solo travel, or how do you kind of begin this process? Because a lot of
Mhm.
people will tell me they're interested in retreats, but they're very skeptical because they realize, oh my God, I got to fly all the way over there by myself, and who's going to get me, and what am I going to do when I get there? And this is what
Yeah.
that whole master class, at least from how I do retreats,
Mhm.
and other kinds of ways that other people host retreats, so you can kind of decide
Okay.
what's going to be best for you.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah, and this is a free masterclass? Yeah,
It's free.
that's really
Yeah.
good because yeah, I think those are some of the primary concerns that people have. I mean, technically, if you're going on a retreat and you're going by yourself, it's a solo experience and you are going into unfamiliar spaces and connecting with people that you
You
don't
don't
know.
know.
So, I can
Right.
see how people would have some, like, resistance around that. So,
Yeah.
that's really cool that you're
Yeah.
gonna give
Yeah.
folks some insight. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. And I know, don't be bothering Keyshawn, but if you do, want to see and want to connect, you can share what they will find at KeyshawnRains.com.
They
What
will find, all the information about the services that I offer, of which none will be available between July 23rd and August 8th, but they will be no, but it's a way to connect with me, you can send me an email from there, you can ask questions, you can learn more about the services that I offer. I do primarily consulting and independent coaching, I work with individuals, small business owners, organizations, all that kind of stuff, and like I mentioned, I think the work that I do, the work that we both do, and, requires so much of us to hold space for and pour into other people. And for other women out there who do this type of work, it is essential that you're taking time for yourself. And
Yes.
even it doesn't always have to be a big international trip. It doesn't always have to be a big old retreat. Sometimes it could just be finding a cute place and booking yourself a room for 2 nights just to get away. So,
Downtown.
yeah,
Seriously. Like,
yeah,
seriously, like, spend time with self is really
for
kind of the
sure.
point that I
Yeah.
think is really important. You were saying that common thread of really, attending to your needs. I'll
Yeah.
say this, I keep saying this is it, but this is really it. So
Okay.
those of you who really follow know that I do astrology. I'm calling it astrology reading because I think people understand that, but it's really astrology guidance, right? Look at your
Yeah.
chart and kind of help you through some of your challenges. And so, I still go through, I'm in a really advanced training right now. And this is how powerful so my instructor, he already knows a lot about me, but he didn't know all about my retreat kind of stuff I do.
Oh,
And
okay.
he literally, we were going through this one kind of aspect of astrology, and he's like, so yeah, this placement, you should be like doing retreats or this. And I'm like, that's what I do.
Well,
So we
well, well.
literally and he
That's
was
cool.
breaking it down so tight. He said, but what I see here, this tendency, and he was teaching me how to read this so I could see this in other people's chart. But he's like, the tendency is that you're creating that retreat and that rest for others, but you're not doing it for yourself enough.
Mm,
And this is what keeps popping up for me is
yeah.
how do I really, so to your point, those who are out here who are doing, work where you're helping other people,
Mhm.
you probably are wired to do that energetically.
Yeah.
Caretakers, that's a natural kind of gift,
Right.
but that also means you got to really, really be intentional with how you take care of yourself. And I'm
For
I'm
sure.
practicing. I'm a work in progress. So
Yeah, we all
um
are. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well,
good.
have
I'm
an
excited.
amazing trip. We're gonna be
Thank
back
you.
next week,
I'll
though. She's
see
not
you
gone
again
yet.
before I leave. Yeah, and I don't leave until the last week of this month, so we have some
Yeah.
more time together before I
So we
go.
have some more time, and I don't know what the topic's gonna be next week, but
Okay,
this
that's
is
fine.
fun. This is really fun, and we
This is
appreciate you
great.
guys tuning in.
Thank
Share,
you.
yeah, share this, this episode with people who you think, all those people who trying to scare you from
Share with
traveling.
them. Mhm.
Share with them
Share with them.
because it's
Yeah.
nothing to be. I think it's way scarier right now living here.
Girl, it's mhm. Yeah, I was like,
On
yeah.
a lot of
I'm
levels.
like, solo travel is also a way to, explore potential residences that you
Absolutely,
might
for
be
real.
interested
No,
in.
I'm it
See what
listen,
it's like. Yeah,
I
you never
yes,
know.
I'm planning a solo trip this, November, and a part of it is to, yes, be scout
Just
I'm now in scouting mode. So
there
now
you
when I'm
go.
traveling, and I'm doing some solo one solo trip later this summer. I am
Okay.
meeting someone up for just a moment, just like for dinner or whatever, but
Nice.
again, it's scouting.
Yeah,
I'm not just doing it just to
just
vacate,
for
so
fun. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, so
heard.
all right,
Well,
well, we'll be back next week,
see
and
you
we'll have
next
a new
time.
topic, and
Bye,
so we'll see
everybody.
you guys. Yeah, you guys take care.